What's going on, people? And today I took a look at Subterra from the request of one of my Discord DMs who told me up front that it probably wasn't going to be my cup of tea. And yeah, they were not wrong at all. Before I talk about the negative stuff, which will be very easy because you'll probably be able to guess everything that I'm going to say long before I even say it, first we need to talk about the positive stuff. What's good about this game? And in fairness, there's actually a decent amount of stuff to say here. I think the most important thing to say is that this game looks incredible. From a visual standpoint, it's clear a lot of work went into making the game look good, and that's not necessarily that difficult when it comes to just putting in dark areas and having good lighting. But at the end of the day, whether it's difficult or not doesn't really matter. What really matters is what the end product looks like. And in this case, I think Subterra looks incredible. The voxel art style definitely works to its own benefit, saving them a whole bunch of time, and the lighting, as I mentioned, is fantastic. It has this sort of chill yet almost foreboding atmosphere throughout playing the game that I think really strikes well for a mining atmosphere. I'm honestly a very big fan of it. Now, the other thing, and probably the most obvious thing that you've long since noticed at this point, is that this game is very unique in the way that its camera and gameplay functions on the Roblox platform. If you've played Roblox before, which who am I kidding, all of you have, you'll know that generally speaking, Roblox is played from the third-person perspective, and you can adjust your camera and move it around accordingly. But in Subterra, that's not at all how it works, and the amount of effort that has to go into completely changing the fundamentals of the way that you control a game is something that can't be understated. In Subterra, you're basically playing on a 2D plane, but it's not actually a 2D plane, it's more of a 2.5D plane, as your camera is generally always going to be on the same outwards 2D angle, but your character can still move around in 3D space. This ends up being super interesting because the contrast between the upper level town area of the game and the actual mines themselves is very different. As when you're in the town, you can move around in 3D space, as I mentioned, with your character, and go to talk to a whole bunch of different people, do a bunch of different stuff, things that I'll get to, but once you enter the mines themselves, that 2D plane becomes much more of a true 2D plane, with you, along with any sort of hazards or enemies, always going to be on that plane and not having to worry about the 3D space. It makes moving around this environment a lot more simple when it comes to avoiding pitfalls or placing blocks, and overall I just think that this works really well for a gameplay loop, and if the game had been, well, anything other than what it is right now, I'd probably be a lot more impressed and have a lot more fun with it, but I'm getting ahead of myself. As for systems in the game, there's plenty going on here, whether it be an entire perk system that you can use in order to upgrade your character, directly upgrade your pickaxe with things that you find in the mine, upgrade your inventory space, as well as an entire crafting system of which you can find recipes randomly throughout the world and then use them to craft different items that might help you down in the mines. They also have some fantastic systems to save your time, which is unfortunate considering some of the things that waste your time, which I'll be getting to. But when I'm talking about positives, the fact that you can go to this little portal area and use it to teleport down to certain areas of the mine that you've already been, that's really, really helpful. It's because as it stands right now, Subterra exists on a singular map, and so that means that each individual biome is just deeper and deeper down. And the way that the game works in order to make sure that you don't just mine out the entire thing is that every couple of hours there's a mine collapse, and when that happens, the mine effectively resets. And so if that happens and you're somewhere very deep, you can just go back to the portal, teleport down to where you were, or at least a general area of where you were, and get right back to it. And then if you want to get back up, there's a button to teleport all the way back up to the top rather than having to climb, which is really appreciated. I could have seen lesser games making you have to climb all the way back out of the mine and wasting a shitload of your time with an incredibly obnoxious inventory system that would make you have to constantly go up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. It would have been miserable, and they didn't do that here, and I'm really, really glad for that. Now, finally, the last thing that I want to mention is the tutorial for the game, which does exactly what I think it needed to do. Unless it did such a bad job that I'm going to miss several incredibly important things that people are going to incessantly complain about in the comments, which I quite honestly find pretty unlikely, the tutorial does a really good job of explaining the game and what you're doing. Now, a lot of that stems from what you're doing basically being a whole lot of nothing. And so now, yeah, we gotta get to this. Okay, so I just gotta say it, Subterra is incredibly boring. This game is basically B game with extra steps, or maybe it is just B game with the same amount of steps. Because good Lord, this stuff is going to put me to sleep. This is like the picturesque, perfect example of one of those incremental games that I can't stand. So you're gonna wanna go into the mines and find materials so that way you can upgrade your pickaxe, so that way you can go into the mine and mine other materials. If you find other materials that you can't mine with the current stuff, then you need to grind some more until you can. And that's the whole game. That's it. You did it. Like, oh my god, you have got to be kidding me. These kinds of gameplay loops just baffle me every time I see them, because surely there was something interesting that you could have done here. But I guess not. It really is just go into mine, hit rocks, come back up, upgrade pickaxe. Go into mine, hit rocks, come back up, upgrade pickaxe. And you just do that over and over and over and over and over again. And listen, I've been doing this long enough that I already know there are people leaving comments and they're like, well, Eclipse, isn't this the same progression as like any other game? In another game, you might be fighting enemies and then you fight the enemies so that way you can level up to fight harder enemies, right? So that's the same thing, right? Well, no, obviously not. You're an idiot if you're saying that, but I already know idiots are going to leave that comment. There's a very stark contrast between fighting enemies that actually fight back and have varying boss battles of different levels of interaction and literally clicking on rocks. The interactivity between fighting something and clicking on a rock is astronomically different. And regardless, I've already explained why, yes, you're correct. That kind of gameplay loop, if done poorly, sucks. Say hi to Blox Fruit for me, will ya? Now, I know, some of you might be saying, but Eclipse, there are enemies in the caves that you might... No, there aren't. No, there are not enemies, because the way that the enemy AI is programmed, which admittedly is probably pretty difficult to try to make the AI even remotely competent, considering the environment that you're playing in, the AIs pose zero threat whatsoever. All of the enemies, they might as well not even be there. I don't know why they bothered to include them. I guess to make you just fooled into thinking that there's a threat there, so maybe you'll buy a sword. I never even bought a sword, because why would I bother? The enemies served no threat. Anytime I saw one, I could just lead it off a cliff and then never see it again. Speaking of cliffs, now we can talk about how unimportant your surroundings are and how I went from feeling kind of at threat to, oh, I don't give a shit, very, very quickly. And that comes from the fact that I know in a lot of games I'm usually against fall damage, but this game is absolutely not one of those. There is no reason why this game didn't have fall damage. None. You would think that if you dug straight down and fell like 100 feet and then landed on the ground, maybe you would break your legs? Die immediately, perhaps? No, in this game, nothing happens. Now, if you break a rock that has a stalactite on it, and then you land on the ground, and that lands on you, then you die instantly. But if you just jump off a cliff, you'll be absolutely fine. Now, I understand fall damage could have been a scary thing to implement, considering that seemingly the way that you start the game is that you get into the mines by using a ladder, and if the ladder janked out and you fell all the way down, you'd die. And if you had to constantly go up and down manually through the ladders, I can see how fall damage could be an issue. But with the teleporter, that just isn't the case. You can teleport directly into the mine into a safe spot, so you don't need to use the ladders. So the risk of dying on the ladders doesn't exist because you don't even use them. So basically, you can just turn your brain off, mindlessly go down at any given point, and there's no threat to you whatsoever. Fantastic. And just for the record, if you're going to come in and tell me that at the 5-hour mark it suddenly gets more difficult, I'm going to dismiss your opinion completely, because that's the most stupid thing you could possibly tell me. I played for roughly an hour and a half, and I was bored out of my mind by that point. If the game hasn't hooked me and I'm bored out of my mind at an hour and a half, the game has already failed. And if it gets better at the 5-hour mark, then the 5-hour mark shouldn't have been the 5-hour mark. It should have been the 1.5-hour mark. It's not rocket science. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about is wasting your time, because at times this game feels like a mobile game, probably because it was almost certainly designed to be a mobile game, but hey, I could be wrong. It has some of those pointless, asinine features that mobile games have, where things take a specific amount of time in order to accomplish just to make you sit around and wait. But I think the hilarious thing here is that unlike in mobile games where it takes absolutely forever, these only take like a minute or two. So it just proves to frustrate you, but not make you close out of the game. I don't really understand what the purpose here was. If I go to smelt 100 items and it's going to take 100 seconds, 100 seconds isn't all that long. 99% of players are not going to pay for a microtransaction to make this stuff instant, but maybe 1% will. So the minor inconvenience is just there to try to extort the 1% of people who are stupid enough to pay for this? I don't know, but it feels like shit from a gameplay perspective. Crafting was much the same, where you have to go to this altar, and when you get there, you place things on these pedestals in order to craft things. In my case, I wanted to craft a bunch of stone blocks so that way I would have things to place down and build myself some platforms. But trying to build these stone blocks, initially I thought that I had to place them into each altar one by one. Turns out you don't actually have to do that. You can place multiple on each altar, but it caps out at 16, and any more than that and it doesn't work. So you can only craft a couple blocks at a time, and if you go over the 16 count, you have to cancel the craft, or you'll just be mindlessly putting things in and it will never go anywhere. Why this isn't unlimited, why you can't just choose how many things you want to craft, I have no idea, but it seems like this entire system was just made to waste your time, and that sucks. All of this could have been so much simpler with a menu with the recipes that you have, and just clicking the craft button for the amount you want. You know, kind of like the smelting system that's already in the game. It would also then circumvent the wiki issue that I'm sure currently stands, which is where you can just look up recipes for stuff even if you don't have them. If it was all in a menu, you would actually have to get the recipe to make the item, and so then you would alleviate the massive advantage that someone who goes on Google gets over someone who's just playing the game like a normal person. But no, that's not how it works, because screw you, I guess, I don't know. And really, that's basically it. There isn't much for me to say here because, well, I didn't do a whole lot, now did I? Go underground, break rocks, come back up, upgrade pickaxe is literally the whole thing. So if you like go underground, break rocks with pickaxe, go back up and upgrade said pickaxe, then you can give this game a shot. I'll have it in a link in the description of this video. But for the rest of us, yeah, you're gonna have to pass on this one. It's a little technically impressive, and I wish that they had tried to do more than just break rock simulator, and maybe they will, but in its current state, nah. With that, I am done here. So if you enjoyed the video, you can leave a like and subscribe. If you didn't, don't. And with all that being said, have a wonderful day or night wherever you are, and I'll see you guys next time.